This is chapter 4, question mark?
Yeah.
And then chapter 5, oh yeah, we're gonna have plenty of time today. Wait, the last lecture part was muted because I'm gonna do still not. If I had a soundboard like I got at home. All right, this is what safety and
Workforce safety and wellness.
With your back.
Ambulance collisions are a big source of injury for paramedics. We have a couple here. Tyler damn near broke like 4 ribs, patient's shoulder, and a stretcher 1 year from an incident on the interstate, especially if you're not secured in the back. You should always be secured when you're providing patient care unless you have to move around the truck. I know a lot of trucks now have those harness ones that, you know, you can still get up and move, but if something happens, it snatches you back. Some of them are fancy and have airbags and those things, but you should always be secured in the back. Physical acts of lifting and moving patients injure paramedics. I think most services nowadays have some sort of power lift. They have specialized bariatric ambulances that have winches and ramps and all that kind of stuff on it. Large stretchers, again, proper and safe lifting techniques and moving patients is a skill. Use your legs, bend your knees, don't use your back. That dumb stuff, you will pull something. 24 hours or more on the shifts. Long shifts can play a role in it, especially if there's limited downtime. They've done studies for years about 24s versus 12s versus 16s versus 8s versus all of that, which they can do studies, but until there's federal government support, there's no way, you know, going to 12s here, we would have to double our staff, which means double our payroll, and that just is literally not financially feasible. Nutrition and physical fitness play a role. As you can see, half of us eat fast food in here. We consume energy drinks and nicotine like no other. That plays a role in how physically fit we are. While we may not be the most proper physique on a beach, we do usually have some core strength and muscular strength underneath that padding. And most of us do. Our cardiovascular endurance, on the other hand, typically not well. You know. And then flexibility. I'm about as flexible as fucking steel rod, so that's not happening. Each quality is important. Just kind of have to work on all of those. Muscular strength. Regular exercise trains muscles to exert force and build endurance. Isometric exercise, performing in stable resistance. Those are just things you can do to help do that in all the downtime that we have. Isotonic exercise, muscles will work through a range of motion, and then you have weightlifting. Obviously, we should all know that. Cardiovascular endurance, exercise at least 3 days a week vigorously to raise pulse and target heart rate. Walk a couple steps if you want. Probably get that quality achieved. Find your target heart rate. I'm not going to test you about that. Core elements, you can walk briskly. Go to the mall on Saturday morning about 9 o'clock and join all the ladies and do a mall walk. Stationary bike, stairs, make exercise a daily habit of some sort, even if it's physical chore activity that's outside the norm. That can be considered some type of exercise. Flexibility, stretch your muscle groups. Never bounce when stretching. Consider studying yoga. Don't do it, just study it. Nutrition, alter established bad habits. If you can't, make a behavior change. Self-discipline, patience, commitment to it, set realistic goals, good nutrition, fundamentals. Eat your fruits, greens, and vegetables. See if you can swap vegetables with protein. Then that can be fine. Carbs are bad. Balance calories. Enjoy food, but eat less. Do it so much you don't want to do it.
I feel like you're telling me how to
This isn't me, this is the spider lines. Avoid oversized portions, that's relative. Eat certain foods more often, fruits and vegetables, whole grains, fat-free or low dairy. All the good stuff is what you don't eat. So anything you wouldn't normally eat, just eat it. It'll probably be all right. Make half your plates fruit and vegetables, not fucking half of them. Switch to fat-free or 1% water milk.
Skim milk is the superior milk.
No shot. It's white water.
Go drink water.
It's white water. They said, hey, what do we do with this extra Elmer's glue? Put it in that pat of water and put it in fucking milk. Whole milk is the only way. You're disgusting.
Let me just have all that.
All the flavors in there. Make half your grains whole grains. Okay. Compare sodium in foods, drink water instead of sugary drinks. No. Drink water and sugary drinks. So I'm best of both worlds. If you didn't know, there's a nutritional label on anything that's FDA approved, and some of it's not FDA approved. If you're ever bored sitting on the toilet, read it. Check the serving size. There you go. Serving size. How many servings are in there? That's what they get you. You're like, oh, this ain't bad. Only 110 calories times 8. Plan ahead. Carry a small cooler filled with whole grain sandwiches, cut vegetables. I feel like Dr. Oz is telling us what to do here. Minimize stress through healthy stress management practices. Kicking dogs, beating your spouse. Assess yourself and family history. That way you know what's going to creep up on you, at least you'll know in advance. Exercise can help improve your cardiovascular endurance and lower your blood pressure. Keep your triglycerides and cholesterol in check. Use sunblock. Make sure you get that big white streak on your nose to be protected. Wear sunglasses and a hat. Cover your bald spot. Watch for warning signs of cancer. Okay. Habits and addiction. We should all pay attention during these slides. People who work high-stress jobs overuse and abuse substances. Check. Know whether the physiological dependency, sociocultural dependency, or a true physical addiction. Get free of addiction, particularly those that threaten your well-being. My addiction may protect your well-being, so you're welcome. Back safety, again, use proper lifting techniques, condition your muscles. Yes, definitely get a trainer to how to lift a stretcher. Correct posture, good nutrition. Excess weight and smoking contributes to deterioration. Good rest. I've checked 0 of those boxes on that slide. That's how you should stand at all times. At attention. That way it looks like you want to be slightly confrontational, but you don't know what to do with your hands. You should always sit like that.
The proper patty cake salute.
All of you should sit like that for the rest of the class. Load and unload only if you can safely handle it. Now, I live in a different culture. I used to break my back all the time, but I think the world today, with most people having power loads, it's no longer an issue. But if you don't have a power load, please make sure the person that you're lifting with is roughly the same height and has the same strength capabilities as you. Because I always used to get paired with people like your size, and they'd be like, all right, let's lift this patient, and then what's going to happen when I lift and she lifts? My patient's going towards her. So I would just be like, move out of the way, I'll break my back and herniate my discs. It's fine. Because if you can't lift at the same rate, that patient's going topsy-turvy, and then you're going to have a fun time with them strapped to the stretcher, not only lifting your 86-pound stretcher, but your 586-pound patient. Do not hurry. Bend at the knees, we'll lower your butt, keep your chin up. Lock in. It's like on a saddle. Tighten your abdominal muscles. Avoid twisting and turning. Let your large leg muscles do the lifting, not your back. Exhale during lift so you don't poop your pants. Given the choice, push, don't pull. That's just a door. Used when moving patients up and down stairs and into and out of the units. Look where you're walking, that way you don't trip. It helps. Be careful. One thing I will say that's somewhat helpful here, make sure when you're moving patients with multiple people, one person is making the orders and you have one, if you have the ability to have one spotter. It doesn't need to be a medically trained person, anybody with a voice, 2 eyes, maybe even 1 eye. Depth perception is not always important. That can see and articulate what's going on to say, hey, in about 12 inches you have a step, or hey, you have mud, move left, or whatever the case might be. That way you have a spotter so you know you're not moving this patient. I don't know if you've ever been moving a patient with 3 or 4 other people, step in some mud, and you start sliding, everybody else starts going, and the patient's going, fuck me. It's not a fun time. So if you can have a spotter, it does help. There you go. Look like you're always pooping. That's how you live. Infectious diseases caused by pathogens, either bacterial or viral, spread from person to person. You have bloodborne or airborne. You have a list in your book? I bet I didn't try this.
Yes, there is a.
Incubation period on the right. And the incubation period is what? How long it can take to start showing signs and or symptoms of the infection.
That's what I'm saying.
Like I said, we're always in limbo with this one. Never know. Several. Consider blood or body fluids of every patient you treat as infectious. Always wear gloves. Say no, as I do. Safeguard against infections mandatory for all medical personnel. Some, obviously, situations will require different safety precautions. If you ever birthed a baby in the back of a moving truck, there's a lot of fluid that doesn't stay where it usually stays in a non-moving apparatus. I would recommend some welding goggles or a hood if you have the possibility to get one of those, because bodily fluids do slosh quite frequently. You have someone who you're intubating, always have somebody there with either their hand, or if you have those face shields, or those old chemistry goggles from 8th grade that you always used to play with that smelled like awful plastic, you can use those. Just because you can have stuff come up through the tube if they've aspirated or they have CHF or something. I don't know if you've ever been dolphin sprayed in the face with anything coming out of an ET tube. It is not a pleasant experience. Steve and I ended up both eating somebody else's beef stew that they had previously consumed because we were intubating and through the tube it had hit us in the face. And we were screaming, and more. And as we were screaming, more hit us in the face. And got in our mouth, and he's like, "What is it?" I said, "I think this is beef stew." It was awful. So if you ever had that face, yeah, clamp your tooth, not just to keep people, but to keep food out of your mouth that's already been chewed. Unless you want an old person from a nursing home baby hurting you through ET tubes, highly recommend it. Tell them about that one. It was that. I wish we would have been like on whatever that Night Watch episode for that, because that's really good. I got a carrot. It was rough. EMS straddles disciplines of healthcare and public safety and risks of both. Do what you can to minimize risk for you, your patient, your partner, other responders in the community. There are standard precautions for any type of exposure. Obviously, the first thing we do are steel stuff with BSI thing safe. Your BSI is going to be your gloves or your mask or your shield or your gown or whatever might be required. I know during COVID, we had those big hazmat suits that had those breathing things. It's all going to change depending on what we're dealing with. Standard precautions apply to blood, any bodily fluids, secretions, excretions, except sweat, regardless of whether or not they contain visible blood. Any non-intact skin should be covered. Your mucous membrane should be protected, so your nose, your eyes, your mouth, all of that stuff. You can use reverse protocol or precautions as well. You know, they want to spit or they keep coughing. Here's a mask. Enjoy it. Keep it in there. Don't have a mask. You should have an outer breather. Any of those things can help. All EMS personnel should take the same precautions with every patient. There's people out there that are like, they're clean and they got the HEPs or something. You never know. Just treat everybody like they got something. Wear protective gloves, again, masks and protective eyewear. You can have HEPA or the N95 respirators. You can have the surgical masks. Anything like that can help you or them. Again, we should have gowns, hand washing supplies at a minimum, hand sanitizer, but you should always wash your hands with soap and water at the quickest available opportunity. If you don't know how to wash your hands, it should tell you in your book, but I'm not going to tell you how. If you ever come in contact with Ebola, you're fucked. It's contracted through broken skin or mucous membranes, blood or bodily fluids, needles, syringes. You have a collection of bats or monkeys, or you have intercourse with either of those things, you can come in contact with it. PP alone is not sufficient to ensure protection from the Ebola virus. And again, if any of you have not seen the movie Outbreak, watch it. It's quite fun. You can use a PAPR, N95s, kind of single-use masks, gowns, any of those things help. Again, gloves. Our gloves are single-use. Don't wash them, don't turn them inside out. You see these people will have a temperature, have vomiting, fever, diarrhea. They'll eventually start vomiting blood or feces. They'll become incontinent. Sweating becomes profuse. They start drooling a lot. They'll actually start bleeding from their mucous membranes at the end of it. Their eyes will start bleeding, their ears will start bleeding, their mouth will start bleeding. It's quite a rough thing. Immunizations that we should get, unless you're one of those anti-vaxxers and you can die along. If you want to do that, that's your prerogative. Measles, mumps, tetanus, polio, Hep A and B. You can get stuff for Lyme disease, or you can just wait to get bit by a tick, whatever you want. Tuberculosis screening, whether it be a chest x-ray or the stuff that we do in here. We should probably get tested for stuff more than we do. I feel like in our profession, there should be an avenue through affiliating hospitals or something like that to do yearly screenings of just a laundry list of things. But they say do all of this stuff, but they want us to do it out of pocket. Most of us can't afford it or aren't going to. I think that's something I know we've tried to push here with our affiliating hospital, and they don't want to do anything of it. But and we try to get yearly screenings across the board for those common exposures. Decontamination of equipment, properly disposed PPE. Again, if it has any type of fluids or blood on it, that will go on the bio. You'll see a red bag marked with a bio seal. That's not for trash. Needles and sharps go in a sharps container. Whether it be a handheld one, a vehicle mounted one, or whatever, it needs to go in there. We do not put needles in our seats here. So if you're one of those crazy ass people, stop that before you ride here. We don't use needles punctured in the seat. That way we can reach for them again in a little bit. All of our needles come with caps. So if you want to reuse it, that's fine, but don't stick it in my seat. That's a bio bag if you've never seen one. That is a sharps container for a handheld if you've never seen one. Contaminate non-disposable equipment must be cleaned, disinfected, and sterilized. Whether, I wonder if we ordered. Anyways, wash with soap and water. You can use a disinfecting agent, whether it be bleach, any of those Virex wipes or Virex solutions, Clorox sprays, any of those things. So cleaning is with water, disinfecting has some type of disinfectant agent, and sterilizing is with a chemical or physical method such as an autoclave. Whether you use on your laryngoscope blades, your hemostats, your forceps, any of those things that you can autoclave, you can do that in there and they will completely sterilize those for reuse. Exposure, occurrence of blood or bodily fluids coming in contact with non-intact skin, eyes, mucous membranes, or parental contact, so through your mouth, through your T-bird or any of that stuff would be bad. Immediately wash the infected area with soap, get an evaluation, take your boosters, notify the agency's infection control liaison, and document what happened and how it got exposed. There should be a written report of any time that there's an exposure by you and your employer. Part of that goes into the, QA side and QI and CQI side of things of, okay, you got exposed, what can we do to prevent future exposures? We're dealing with the death and dying. We got different stages of grief and mourning. The raw stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. You should all know those in order. People deal with those stages of grief differently, and they deal with those different stages for different periods of time. Some people can rush through all 5 stages in about 12 seconds, and some will, be in the denial stage for days or months, and the anger stage for days or months, and so on. So everybody deals with grief differently. Because we encounter death and dying often, there's a mistaken belief that they handle it better. No, we're just exposed to it more. You deal with death how you deal with it. At some point, as much death as we deal with, there's going to be some type of run, some type of instance, some type of occurrence that caused the death that's going to stick with you and bother you. When it does, you need to reach out. There's so many avenues now for mental health and what do you call them? The little fucking, thank you, peer support groups that can come out and deploy within 24 to 48 hours. Employers should help you. Like I know here, as employers, if someone comes to us with an issue, we give them a minimum of 5 free sessions with a therapist to work their shit out, and they can continue on from there. Your employer should have those avenues if you need it. Grief is a feeling and mourning is a process. So everybody's going to deal with things differently, and so are your patients and the family. And initially hearing the news of a death, obviously an unexpected a person experiences a paralyzing, incapacitating surge of grief. Wait until this passes. The survivor is ready to be able to receive the information and make decisions. I'm a firm believer of being blunt and straightforward and not using the euphemisms of he's gone or he's passed or he's in a better place or he's on the pearly gates or whatever you believe in. Using the word death, dead, dying, whatever, are how we need to do it. Because sugarcoating is going to give a false sense of hope or a false ideology of what's going on. And now I'm not saying you should just be like, hey, bitch dead. Like don't be, uncaring to the fact, but use the proper words and don't try to sugarcoat anything. Intense feeling for 4 to 6 weeks between the loss, anger, resentment, sadness, guilt. Keys are to process mourning is the passage of dates and anniversaries. Obviously, we've all but a lot of us have dealt with issues that have spread over to family. There's been a loss of someone. And then 2 years anniversary date. I know we dealt with one here a couple months ago. Somebody lost their brother, and 2 years on the day they killed themselves on that date. It's one of those things that it may not spiral right away, but things happen. Obviously, a child's perception is different than adults. They deal with things differently. They don't understand things the same. Sometimes it's better or worse. This chart's in your book. This kind of tells you how you can interact with these age groups. Between this age, probably not a whole lot going on, except maybe hold them or do something for them, and a whole lot of conversation taking place. Once you get up into these ages here, they'll start processing their own thing. They kind of become a normal adult, they'll start shutting you up. What to say, assess the scene and the people in each situation. I will say, on the first delivery of some type of notice or conversation, don't do it to a group of people. Pull the next of kin or the closest immediate family member to the side and let them know. Because if not, you can control one person a lot easier than you can control 10. It's not a press conference. We're not there to, deliver the news like we're at a media outlet of someone passing. Pull that husband, wife, mother, daughter, whoever, aside individually, tell them, let them disseminate that information. You don't know how people will respond. Some people take it well, some people don't, some people collapse, some people start screaming. Let them deal with how they deal with it. Position yourself between them and the door or another escape route. Expose you in this during skill scenarios, because at any given point, something can go wrong and you don't want to be trapped. Some of these people will get angry at you because you didn't do something, even though there's nothing you could have done, they'll take it out on you. If they get aggressive with you, you need to asses and elbows out of that situation so you're not trapped in there. Again, do not deliver to a large group. Then it turns into a Maury Povich situation. Try to do it to one person and let them disseminate that information. And honestly, the next of kin is the one that needs to be notified, the rest of the family. And you're always going to have the one, well, I've been the closest cousin's uncle for 10 years. I don't give two shits about that if you're not the kin. They can tell you what they want to tell you. It's not my place to tell you what's going on. Do not make assumptions. Address the closest survivor. If the survivor is alone, see if you can contact someone. Is there another family member we can contact? Is there a chaplain we can contact? Anybody we can, a neighbor, somebody that, the last thing you want to do is have them go through that and then sit at home alone. So make every effort while you can to try to help arrange someone to either come get them, come sit with them, or come get there. Introduce yourself. Careful word choice is helpful. Again, use the words dead or died. Don't use euphemisms or anything else. Use gentle eye contact. Like, don't bat your eyes, but also don't get into a staring contest with them. Seem as confrontational. Do not include statements about God's will or relief from pain. You don't know what people's beliefs or orientations are. Basic elements. Your so-and-so has died. Nothing more that they could have done. There's nothing more that we could have done. That you and your service are available to assist them to be taken somewhere or evaluated. And if not, is there anyone that you can contact for them to get them there with them? Give out information about local procedures for on a hospital death. Are you calling the coroner? Does someone come get them? Do they have prearranged arrangements? Whatever the case might be. You follow your protocol on that one, whether you contact a 79 or the coroner or let the funeral home come get them or what the case might be. When it's someone you know, being involved is threatened or lost can be a powerful impact on your emotions. If you're ever in a situation or know you're going somewhere with that, you have the ability to remove yourself from the situation, do so. You can sit here and say you can handle it all day long until you're facing it. You may not be able to. So I know all of us want to go there and do something, but if you have the ability to remove yourself from the situation, do it. Stress, non-specific response of your body to any demand. Stressors can stimulate the cause of stress, obviously. Stress both beneficial and detrimental. Distress is a negative effect. Eustress is good stress. So there's some definitions for it. Have some defense strategies or coping mechanisms to stress, and try to build on your problem-solving skills of saying, all right, this is causing me stress. Can I control it? Yes or no? No? All right. Don't let it cause you stress. Yes. What can I do about it? EMS practice stressors, me is the administrative side, scene-related stressors, emotional and physical, environmental, relationships. Just like we don't want to take our work home with us. Don't bring your home life to work. It can be harder sometimes, but you got to do your best to separate the two. And if you can't, then you need to find help yourself. Know what your stressors are. Know to try to relieve yourself out of those stressful situations if it's going to cause a problem. And know how much you can take before it does become a problem. If you have lots of stress or anger issues, make sure you have some type of management strategy in place to help you work through those. We've got different stages. Stage 1 is the alarm, fight or flight stage. Stage 2 is your resistance. Assume this is in your book.
35.
Okay. Stage 3 is exhaustion. You have a huge chemical dump in your body and you just need a bunch of rest and recovery. Sleep. Shift work, there will always be shift work in EMS. Working odd hours is stressful due to our biorhythms in our body. I've been out of I was in the 24-hour schedule for 9 years almost. I'm going on year 5 or 6 on the administrative side, and I still have problems to this day going to bed before 1 o'clock in the morning. Because for a decade, my body was so used to just being up for 24 hours and then crashing. Again, I still have problems with this. Circadian rhythm, biological cycles that occur in 24-hour intervals. Sleep deprivation is common among people who work at night or 24-hour shifts. Sleep in a cool, dark place that mimics nighttime environment. Stick to sleeping at your anchor time. I know a lot of us like to take naps here, but usually that causes more stress on the body because then you get out of that rhythm, especially on your off days. You know, you work 24 hours, you want to go home and crash, and that's fine, but then you have to follow some type of rhythm, otherwise you're dead day 3 again when you restart. Do not eat heavy meals or exercise before bedtime. Post day sleeper sign on your door. That way they know you're sleeping during the day. Don't do that here, so it's fine. Turn your phone's ringer off. Also do not do that in case you need to get contact. Signs of stress. They can all be different. Physical, emotional, behavioral. We always hear the term burnout in our profession. It's an extreme endpoint of stress. Most of the time, I will say, I feel like we as people or providers cause ourselves to be more burnt out than we probably should be because we sit here and dwell and bitch and moan about what our stressors are, but do absolutely zero to change what those stressors are, and then we use that as a scapegoat. I think we should take more responsibility on ourselves, saying, hey, I'm identifying this as an issue. And that's, people have come to me and said, dude, I just burnt out. Okay, what are you burnt out about? X, Y, and Z. Great. What have you done to change that? Huh? What have you done to change that? Nothing. Then I don't want to hear it. Like, that's on you. This table's probably in your book.
That is here.
Techniques for managing stress. Detrimental techniques. Temporary sense of relief will not cure the problem. Substance abuse. Always a good one. Overeating or compulsive behaviors. Chronic complaining. Like a lot of people's way of dealing with stress is just bitching and moaning, but again, doing nothing to change what the stress is. Freezing out or cutting others off. Avoidance behaviors. Dishonesty about state of well-being. I'm good, fine, straight, I'm good, everything's fine. Don't be too proud. Sometimes you don't have to talk to a professional, just talk to that one person that you can trust and know they're not going to run their mouth. Sometimes it might help the person that's listening, and sometimes it'll at least help you get it off your chest so you're not modeling. Be surprised at how much just saying it out loud helps. Healthy techniques. Control breathing, the whole woo-saw thing from Bad Boys 2. Rub your ears and breathe, blow slow, deep breaths and rub those pressure points on your ears to calm you down. Reframe thoughts, just kind of think of what's happened and then direct them into something more positive. attend to medical needs of the patient. Sometimes just distractions, I feel like would be a better word here. Something we enjoy or that we're good at that just makes our brain work at something else so we don't have time to sit there and stew and overthink on it. Take care of yourself physically, emotionally, and mentally. Create non-EMS circle of friends. Most of us don't have that. I mean, we have friends that are not EMS, but I think if most of us go back and think, a lot of our close friends are in EMS, and that's just because they understand it. We can be at a dinner table talking about vomit and shit. Somebody's being eviscerated, and then other people are like, "Eat right now." Bad. And then it is what it is. Create positive options of yourself and positive opinions as well. Specific EMS stresses, small daily stress, small incidents, and large. I don't. That's a stupid fucking slide. PTSD. Apparently, that's a thing. Anxiety disorder that develops from exposure to traumatic events. Reoccurrent, unwanted, distressing memories of traumatic events. Reliving that traumatic event as if they were happening again. Everybody copes with that differently. Some people bottle it up. Some people find a hobby. Some people talk to a therapist. You need to do what's best for you. There is no cookie cutter way of saying this is how you do it. Can change on how individual reacts emotionally. Can adversely affect a person's mood or thinking. Back in 2024, they came out with a Code Green campaign, which was kind of the initial head sphere of mental health in first responders. So they've cared about our mental health for about a decade now. They've really started focusing, I'd say, about the last 3 to 4 years. It's become a real thing. That, it's becoming more accepted. Should never feel like you can't get some mental health help. Get rid of the stigma that you think is there. If you need to talk to somebody, talk to somebody. Because if not, it's going to get worse for you and the people around you. Psychological first aid, safety and comfort, stabilization, practice assistance, connect with support groups, forum on coping, link to collaborative services, who can help, what can be done, avenues out there for contact. I mean, even here, I know that we don't have a whole lot of crime or drugs in our area here, so it's very infrequent. But, if we deal with overdoses and stuff here every day, we hand out cards to peer coaches, support groups, rehab centers to say, hey, we're not forcing you to do this. It's up to you. You make your own decision. We're giving you an avenue if you've had enough of this bullshit. We've had enough. Have you? You can't force somebody to do something that they don't want to do. You giving them a dad talk usually isn't going to work. But if you say, hey, you had enough of this shit, contact these people. They'll treat you right. It's going to be whatever the case might be. Mass casualty incidents, mental health personnel available on scene. Usually on those big events, you'll have some debriefing counsel there that you'll have to, some of them force you to go through, and some of them give you an option to go through, depending on what type of incident has occurred. Interpersonal relationships, effective communication, and building rapport. Big thing that we all need to do in this field is put personal prejudices aside. As much as you think of someone or don't like someone, whether it be in a professional setting or clinical setting, you have to put that aside and do what you would normally do. Be accepting of other people's backgrounds. Roadway safety, don't play chicken in the middle of 65. Wear your vests. Make sure that you're driving with due regard and you're getting there safely. Ambulances are larger, so they don't maneuver like a Fiat. So they're going to need a bigger braking distance. They don't turn as sharp. A lot more moving weight, all of that stuff. Make sure there's a person designated to drive with at least the training and with least training and the least experience. Oh, yeah. So the person that's designated to drive is usually the newbies. That's just because I'm going to be a passenger princess and make you do all the work. I do not like that philosophy. While I do believe you need to get better at driving, there's times that you probably shouldn't be driving. So, yeah, just because you're a paramedic doesn't mean you don't know how to operate the wheel pedals anymore. Make your partner drive because usually, well, you can't be in. It's very difficult to come in and be a new paramedic without having some exposure to EMS first. And at some point, you've driven an ambulance and done it. EMTs are the ones that we usually get paired with as paramedics, and they're usually the new ones that have 2 months of experience, and they're saying, here's a $500,000 vehicle, go have fun. So, yeah. Otherwise, you end up like that. Road safety, follow emergency escort vehicle. Again, we do that here a lot. We either get them back to the interstate or we get them to the hospital or the landing zone, just because it's easier for us to clear traffic. Because usually we'll speed up and then we'll ride behind those people for a half a mile that they don't realize that we're behind them with, you know, 1,000,000 lumens of lights on our vehicle, 400 watts of audible sirens, and they still don't realize you're there. And then they jerk over at the speed of light because they finally do realize it and end up in a ditch. But it's easier for us to clear traffic as those response vehicles and allow the ambulance to maintain a straight line of getting through. Intersection management is big. Always approach intersections with due regard, and if you have a red light, you need to come to a stop unless it's being blocked by other agencies. You need to clear your intersection before proceeding. Even with a green light, you need to make sure no one's turning right on red in front of you or anything crazy. So just because you have a green light doesn't mean you do mock Jesus through the intersection and rear end the shit out of somebody. Know hazardous conditions. Is it wet? Is it snowy? Is it icy? Is it dark? What's going on? Evaluate safe parking spaces. I'm a firm believer that you should never have to go in reverse to get out. So I always plan accordingly. Because obviously most people can't drive forward, let alone in reverse. So if you do have to leave, I'm a big advocate for backing in to wherever you are. That way when you need to leave, it's a straight shot out. Or at least park to where you don't have to back. You can just continue on. If you're walking up to someone in a vehicle, safely approach that vehicle. Don't ever stand in front of it. These people that are gorked out of their mind, passed out, probably still in drive, and their foot just happens to be on the brake, and then you scare them, and they go, and now you've been punted into oblivion by their Honda Civic, and you got ran over because they don't know what's going on. Make sure you have patient compartment safety. Safely use all emergency lights and sirens. There is a proper way to use your siren. You're not supposed to sound like fucking DJ Khaled, just doing a mixture of fucking on your siren. It's not how you use that. You have a normal run, which is your wail. That's the high and low, right? And you have your yelp, which is the multi-frequency. You use that when you're approaching vehicles within a 200-foot distance. And then you use your fucking one or your high-low or whatever at your intersections. That's how sirens work. You don't just sit there and fucking topsy-turvy on the siren. There's a way to use those sirens. You are not a DJ. Any questions?
Patriots have EMT, just like one of those, DJ Khaled.
Yeah. No. Although, I do have the Dukes of Hazzard one online, so. It's so loud. One more chapter, and then we do fun.
What is your definition of one?
Probably not yours.
What is he doing about
Chapter.
I should have been living.
I think Gage just when I started the straight saving stuff.
Yeah, sure. I'm not teaching.
Four problems.
I love my board, thank you very much. You know what the definition of dodge is? To avoid.
That's right.
tell them gauge. I said, I owe $8,000 on that truck and I hate it.
The blue one?
Mhm.
You just bought it. What'd you buy it?
I needed the truck and I liked it at first and then,
You liked it till you drove it?
well, it has no fucking get up and go, like you mash together.
You don't need get up and go, Bubba. Where are you trying to go? Slow. You need first and second gear. That's all you need. All right, EMS Research. This is a 64 slide, so we should be through this fairly quick. Couple definitions that you'll probably be tested on. Science is the state of or fact of knowledge derived through a scientific method. Research is the use of scientific method to study a given issue. And then the scientific method is the process by which scientists construct accurate representation of the world with reliable, consistent, and non-arbitrary information. Steps of the scientific method. You observe and ask questions. So we have to say, what is the problem? Why do we have a problem? Collect, analyze, and synthesize data to support your issue. You construct a hypothesis. You test that hypothesis. You then analyze the results from that hypothesis and come up with a conclusion. You then revise your hypothesis. Does it support? Does it confirm or deny? Then you report the results. Very good. You have quantitative and qualitative data. One deals with numbers, the quantity, and qualitative deals in words. Then you have mixed, which is a combination of both qualitative and quantitative attributes. There you go. Most medical is quantitative. You have retrospective research, which examines stuff that's already happened or exists. And you have prospective, which studies now and examines what happens from this point forward. Most of these studies are going to use a retrospective research to make changes. So we say over the last 10 years, we've been given this. What has happened? All right. For the next 10 years, we're going to try this, and then we can compare the two to see if there has been good change, bad change, any change at all. Quantitative versus qualitative, determine relationships between one thing, an independent variable, and another dependent variable, and describe it with numbers and statistics. Independent variable affects the dependent variable under a study. Dependent variable is a variable being tested or affected. So if we were doing an epi versus lidocaine study, what is going to be our dependent variable?
It's like, do we get raw stack on that patient versus
The patient is going to be our dependent variable, right? And what happened with that patient? Our independent variable will be our lidocaine or our epi. You're non-experimental. the independent variables that cannot be manipulated for one reason or another. And you have survey quantitative, which reflects the public opinion. That's usually used for marketing or social research. Qualitative relies on a bunch of non-numerical data. It answers the question of why and not how. Occurs in a natural setting. It tries to form quality assurance. So if we go, why does this happen? Why did this happen? What's the reason for this? That is a qualitative research study. Again, you have retrospective and prospective. Retro is looking at existing, pro is starting now, and then using the research to form an objective, accurate, and complete study at the end of it, whether it be 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 years, whatever. But you're starting at a fresh point and saying things are changing from this point forward. What is it going to do in relationship to the other? Experimental groups, both control groups, and treatment are non-manipulated. The subjects are usually random. This is where you'll have your placebo test typically. If everybody's given a blue pill, only half of them work, half of them work. And you'll have people like, I feel better. Well, that was sugar, so maybe your blood sugar's low. They don't know that they're a test subject. The insured demographics between groups are similar. Very hard to have a test group of male and female and expect the same things to happen. So usually they'll use the same study groups of samples. Quasi-experimental, science does not randomly assign subjects to the test group, greater chance of having groups demographically different, and of introduction of bias. They're considered less valid than experimental studies. They are letting them know everything that's going on so that they can form a consensus by themselves. Observational studies do not have control groups. Single or multiple groups are studies without comparison to control. Scientists do not control the variables. They're less valid than the other two. However, these are an important role in medicine. A lot of stuff, all medications go through RCTs, which are randomized treatment groups and control groups, and they can be a single or a double-blind study. Just whether it's all of them know, some of them don't know, or some of them think they know, but it's actually what they gave them is false. This is the pyramid for validation. Your least valid is at the bottom, your most valid is at the top. Your meta-analysis, it's going to take all your study groups and throw it into one big pool. That's how you'll get a bunch of information, different demographics, different everything. But it's the least biased study because you have all of these different. Non-randomized controlled trials, control group and treatment group are assigned to groups not randomized, so they're handpicking who they want where and assigning them to certain things. Those are those quasi-experimental. They're less valid than RCTs, utility in some circumstances. So this is where you'll see drug companies say, all right, these people are going to have effects from this, so we'll just put them over here. That way the side effects are not going to be as detrimental. They're pretty much, in my opinion, they're loaded case studies. You have a cohort study, observational subjects who have certain condition and/or who have received particular treatment over time compared with another group not affected by the condition. So they're saying somebody went through something, how are they in comparison to people that haven't had that happen? Army figurines. Cross-section study, observational, look at single point in time. Case studies look at a group of patients with similar conditions. Case reports are structured study of a single patient who is unique or interesting. You'll see a lot of these come out of the Mayo Clinic. They see a bunch of funky stuff there. Pretty much at the end of the day, if somebody's got something super crazy or critical going on, they'll end up at the Mayo Clinic, and then they'll become a big test tube for them and try to figure out what's going on and what they can do to fix them. Then you have expert opinions, editorials, conjectures are suitable for use before scientific research is available or while it is actually occurring. These are kind of convoluted theses at the end of the day from studies, but without completed studies.
So like the cancer trial.
Then you have animal research. Findings in one specific do not necessarily apply to other species. This is where they'll start with rats and rabbits and all kinds of stuff to test their stuff on. And, you know, if they give this medication to 50 rats, 49 of them die, it's probably not going to see human testing. They'll go on and be like, all right, rabbits, yes, in fact it does. We should probably regroup. You have bench research or in vitro research at most basic level, important in learning how the universe functions or how that's going to function in the universe. Study validity. Validity is whether or how well study supports the conclusion. External validity assures results can be generalized or process the generalizability. Is that a word? Generalizability. Why don't we just say or process general? Anyways, you have internal validity that ensure results can be attributed to the cause. So, can this support conclusion? Can this be generalized for this, and then will it work within this study or this case that it is being tested on? Code of 1947 is the first code to guide ethical practice in human research that you should probably know. And I mean, with medications are about a 10-year process. Unless you're the government, you push it out about 10 days. But for normal, non-government vaccine mandated BS, it takes about 8 to 10 years for a drug to be able to hit clearance and hit market. Helsinki Declaration, subject makes informed decision about participating in research. Assured by researcher that patient safety is protected. Probably know that. Not sure. Good. Institutional Review Board is a committee that approves, monitors, and reviews human research. Their goal is to protect the human subjects. It approves or disapproves of the study before it begins. If these studies become too risky, they see a higher mortality within the study, it causes those researchers to modify or terminate the study if those humans become at risk. Whole statistics. Collecting and analyzing data to draw conclusions and make predictions based on numbers. You have descriptive, which describe basic features of data. Inferential, which are information from sampled observation of population, and make a conclusion. That's the biggest thing, is the inferential is going to make a conclusion about that population. Your mean and median, we should know what all those are. Mean is your average, median is when you put them in numerical order and then find the middle number. Low to high, what's in the middle? Mean and median measure the central's tendency, indicate the center of the group. What is the common norm? Variance is how much they expect something to, that variable to move or not have or have an effect. So they'll take a value and they'll remove the variance from it. Standard deviation is the square root of the variance, and the mode is the most common number in the set of data. Inferential, estimating parameters of population. Within those, you have something called sampling error. Estimation of the difference between the value obtained from the sample and the value that would be obtained from the entire population. Again, you can't test the entire population, even as the federal government, but they can try. So they'll take what they think is going to happen, and they have to understand that based off of these many parameters, this is what will be happening if the entire population is involved. Then you have a confidence interval, variable that is added or subtracted depending on whether it's a net loss or net negative or not to the original population. Already went over that. Okay, cool. To form a research paper, you need to have something that's called an abstract. That's what the need for the study is. The research methods used and the results that were encountered or that occurred. Pretty much a pre-thesis. Your introduction is going to be your pertinent, previously published papers of the subject investigation, pretty much why you did the study, what hypothesis the authors wanted to test, the reason they wanted to test it. They usually need to articulate why they want this purpose of the study. There is the format for most of the journals. You can see they're fairly similar between them. This one has all of them, and these leave out. One leaves out limitation, the other one leaves out discussion. Method section is going to be how the author conducted the study, research, or the results, or how they provided that data, or a summary of the data that they got. The discussion is going to be the authors interpret findings and describe the significance. Sometimes they can include actual opinions from other scientists that have conducted similar or differing studies. And then a summary is going to be the main findings of said study. If you ever want to publish one, you can submit it to a scientific journal. That. That. Applying study results to your practice. You can evaluate the field and know its knowledge bases to make informed decisions about how to interpret research. There's some stuff that makes sense. There used to be a guy, he still works here part-time and he went away for med school. But he always used to take these, he fucking, I swear to God, he never read anything normal. Everything he read was research papers or medical journals or fucking doctor publications. No joke.
That's a joke.
Yeah. And super smart dude. But he'd always be like, hey, in LA, they're doing this. We should do that here. Okay. Dude, Chicago's got this going on. We're not LA. We're not Chicago. All those are urban areas with 100 times the amount of people, with 100 times the amount of, resources. We're an urban environment. They're normal. Look at their transport times. Average transport time is 12 minutes. Ours is 32. Like, you can't, those things don't equate. That was the hardest thing. Super smart guy. I love him to death. And he would bring good information. There's a lot of stuff that it's like, you have to make sure what you're trying to apply is similar to what you're researching. You can't say, hey, I live in Alaska where my response times are 2 hours. Let's base everything off what they do in Chicago. Not the same, bro. Not the same. That matters. Evidence-based decision making. Use the best practice and clinical pathway based on clinical and scientific evidence to ensure the care is safe, cost-effective. Formulate questions about appropriate treatments. What are our options? What can be done? And what makes sense? Review medical literature to see what they've come up with. If evidence supports change in practice, you make a change. If it doesn't, you don't. Is there a cost benefit to it? There might be a net loss, but does it outweigh what the benefit is? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. All that stuff has to be, that could be in the simplest, that could be something you make a change on with your department. Hey, with these IV catheters, they cost $2 a piece. Our success rate as a company is only 60%. That means 40% loss on these IVs. These IVs are $3.50 or $4.50. They're doubled, but our success rate's 90%. Long term, we're using less IVs. While they're more, we're using less. It makes sense to go with these. That's why we go with what we go with here. Our success rate with the IVs that we use now is, as a company, is like 84% first time stick. They cost $7 a piece. But before they were like 52% those bronze. If I'm throwing away less, it's more costly, and I don't have to buy start kits and so on. That it's more cost effective to go with that route. Those are changes you can make, even being any position within a company. You've got your different. This is something you need to pay attention to, are the different classes, levels of evidence. Class 1 through 3. Class 2 is broken down into an A and B. I'm sure that's in your book somewhere. 103. So know those differences there. Any question about this? For those of you going to eat, we'll take 10 minutes before we get moved on to the other stuff. Those of you going to snack before we get started, we're going to have you get to eat. If not, you're free to move up down.
Just study that here. They did a study on 215 emergency responders. Yes, It's a 10.
Oh, that was what's up.
They had like, they get their rating, use that as a basis. They have videos. And I looked at these 10 videos to get them what they thought their GCSE was. And yeah, so
You're gonna answer your kid again.
a small number of subjects assigned GCS scores that do not exist in the book.
Who's here crew?
I'm still waiting to hear back from 2:30, 2:30.
That was like 20 people. Oh yeah, GCS is 17.
He sold them?
4 years ago.
How do you sell medical records?
I don't know.
I feel like
Yeah, this is just physical.
I thought it was a lot younger than 14.
It's
It's almost 14, but I thought that's.
Well, if you sell medical records.
let me see if it's yesterday.
I remember the fun.
You know what's up? And I'm going to do this.
Not so good.
No? Yeah.
Everybody there.
Got that up time? Do it.
So, fuck that up.
Don't fuck it up. Well, I've been worse.
Yeah, I know I was there.
I didn't want that guy to die. That guy to
I
die.
already did.
He wasn't. And he was breathing not very good when we walked in.
Uh-huh.
Whatever happened to that girl? Whatever. She go off and like run around. Girl, you always did time with. Yeah. About 27.
Okay. The address has changed, does it matter? My other page?
I think we put this address down, didn't we? On our last one? I don't remember what you
I
put.
didn't put it on my last one either, I forgot.
Yes, if you're done. You can finish your hours. Keep going.
And collect the phone, I think I should collect the phone, yeah.
Bang.
I'm writing the name on here, I do.
Mm-hmm. Seems much better than last time, so I can't.
I think you did that, so.
I didn't do your last
I
one.
don't think you did it right last time. What did we put in for the date?
But yeah, even though like I was still parallel with your arm, I still think it was too deep. I think you have to get like right under the skin.
Doesn't matter what arm we put it in.
Not for 2 weeks.
Hell, sick.
I've been sick since like January. Caleb, what did we ever, did he send anything definitive on?
Exactly. We took this one, but then we got another one CC train.
You guys did.
Yeah.
They're scared to shoot up, so I'm doing it for them.
TB?
Oh, BT.
You down with TB?
Yeah, you know me.
2CA
You're a
30.
That's the whole fucking mile.
You're a big bump. Hold on for.
Hey, Trevor. Oh,
Yeah, you see that shit?
I did.
All
What
right.
happened?
Really? Yeah, maybe that's what the guys got to do. That's what I want to do, though. Yep.
Tyler, who's the manufacturer on there?
There's a little bitty bump. Thank
What
you.
time is it?
08.
Is this the manufacturer?
Yeah,
Oh, where did you put that?
Samo, then something. Gosh.
Sorry.
Bye. How are you doing?
Yeah, can you go outside for me? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Are you gonna get in my food?
I'm not looking from, I'm buying.
Oh, yeah, I was like, I got that last night, so I'll be my phone.
Yeah.
So I figured out work, went home, I crashed, and I beat it. I crashed like.
Why are you fucking back here?
What did you say?
Because.
If we all get sick, I'm gonna murder you myself.
Anyway, I woke up and I felt
Hey,
great.
look at that.
And I broke my tooth.
That was a good one.
That's a good one.
2:30 in the afternoon yesterday.
You here for whatever fun you got in here now?
Probably.
You're a good family guy.
Yeah. And I can put them in your own file. Yeah, there should be. So, is it on that?
It's long. Piece of metal.
You bleeding? Yeah, I brought some back here.
I'm back in 5 minutes, so I've already uploaded.
What?
I'm back in 5 minutes, so I've already uploaded.
You're back here to finance what?
Wife's already.
You said you had a fever, why are you back here?
I had a fever yesterday.
You've been fever free for 24 hours with nothing.
Comprehensive listening.
Fever free when I came in and go slide free.
Take that.
Tell me where you go.
One more. Well, 2 for 2. See if you can make it 3. 3 for 5.
The other ones.
Huh? No. I did his and Casey's and like beautiful. And then Jacqueline tatered out, and his just tatered out. Can't find that happy medium.
I think say you're negative. Negative weekend.
Oh shit, so they go back positive.
That's it, we're going around.
Push it back your shoes off, blanket in place.
That's no
Oh
problem.
yeah, she's.
I can't have shoes on. That's fine.
hurt. You got your little blood, didn't you?
I do.
Hey, Zach, sit back here taking on the oxygen. We go get that truck container in there. Look, you can't get all crappy.
It's like anything.
Yeah, but you're like,
Let's do one more.
I forgot about her. Your wife reminded me. Your wife reminded me that she still had to get hers. Oh, son of a bitch.